She a bounce motherfucker, yeah, she know it. She know it. She know it. Yeah, you know she know.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I actually decided to do a like a kind of get to know me video. If you guys hear any noise in the background, it's just because my son's back there playing with his toys. But yeah, I decided to do like a get to know me video about like how I became a single mom and like how it's been for me being a single mom. So for starters, I'm not gonna say any names. I'm not trying to point anybody out. He knows who he is. My baby father knows exactly who he is. But I was back, I think it's like back in 2017. I had met this guy or whatever. I met him actually at Walmart. I was working overnights, doing like the overnight stocking and everything. And so we met there, and at the time, he was in a relationship with some female. And then after they broke up, I was actually talking to a guy that, not really talking to him, like trying to date him or anything, like I had a crush on him or anything like that. It was kind of like a friendship type thing. So the guy that I was actually talking to, what are you doing? The guy that I was actually talking to, no pins. The guy that I was actually talking to, we were just friends. Move! We were just friends. And I was supposed to be meeting him at this balloon glow thing that here in the Springs we usually have like every year. So I actually met him at the this other guy. I met him at the balloon festival, and we were talking or whatever. And my baby father was actually there, and I didn't know he was gonna be there, but I showed up and I was looking all good or whatever. And then he sees me and he's like, "Damn." And I'm just like, okay, well, I don't really know what that means. So I said hi to everybody. And then after that, like we all decided to walk to our cars and leave because they had to go to work. So we walked to our cars, or I walked to their car because they all rode together. And my car was like parked on the other side of the park. So I was just like, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable walking at night by myself. So like, are you gonna walk me home? And this was the guy that I was meeting there. And he was just like, well, no. So my baby father at the time, he was just like, well, I'll walk you. So him being the gentleman that he was at the time, he walked me to my car. And from then, like we were talking, as we were walking, we were talking, getting to know each other or whatever. He let me know that he had broke up with his girlfriend, that they were no longer together. And you know, so we started talking, and then like by the end of the night when he walked me to the car, we ended up kissing. And you know, it went on from there. And then we started like going on dates and, you know, getting to know each other more. He would take me to like the aquarium, to the zoo, and like to the movies, dinner, like being like the perfect gentleman. And then so at the time I was living with my mom. I was living with my mom, her husband, and my 4 other siblings. I was living with them. And you know, she didn't really have a problem with him at the time. She knew that I liked him, and she, you know, she was kind to him and everything. And then he was going through this living situation. He was living with some people in a house down the street from his ex-girlfriend, and he went from living there, and after they moved back to their hometown, he moved in with his ex-girlfriend. And at this time they weren't dating. Me and him weren't dating either, but we were talking and getting to know each other and going on dates and stuff. So I guess you can call it dating, but we didn't really put a label on it. So he went from living in that old house to living in the new house with his ex-girlfriend and her family. And then it got to the point where I was just like, okay, well, you need a place to live. I'm tired of living here with my mom, so how about we get a place together? His credit wasn't all that well, so I decided to put an apartment in my name for the both of us. When we moved into the apartment, this time we stopped working at Walmart and we were actually working at this assisted living. We were working there, and then probably a couple months after we started working there, we decided to get our place. When we got our place, he decided, like, we were working 12-hour shifts. And one day he decided that he wanted to work like the overnight shift. So I was at home by myself because, I had the day off. Stop. I had the day off and he was actually at work. And by the time when we moved in, mind you, when you first move into somebody you're in a relationship with, you guys are kind of in that honeymoon stage. What? You're not sticking him under the door, so move. Get it. We were kind of like in that honeymoon stage. And then something clicked in his mind that was just like, okay, well, let me act like I'm a crazy person. So I called him because I knew he was on his way, or I knew it was almost time for him to get off work. So I called him. I'm just like, babe, I miss you. What time are you coming home? And then he snapped on me and he was like, don't ask me what time I'm coming home. Don't ever ask me what time I'm coming home because that makes me think you're doing something. And I'm just like, okay, like how do you respond to something like that when they just snap out of nowhere? So I'm just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just see you when you get home. We hang up the phone or whatever. He walks in the door and he acts like nothing ever happened. And then that time I was just like, well, I should have known that there was something wrong with him. Then I wouldn't have stayed with him. Like, even after going through all of that, us just now getting into our place together, I would have left and had that on my credit. So of course, I let that slide or whatever. And then we got into this big argument, not the same day, but probably like a couple days later. And I forgot what the argument was about, but I know it was like a physical altercation, not really on my end, but on his end. It was never like he was punching me in the face or anything like that, or slapping me or kicking me or anything like that. But we got into this big argument and he was like, oh, well, I'm gonna leave and I'm leaving you and I'm going back with my ex or whatever. And me, I'm still in love with this dude. So I'm just like, well, I don't want you to leave. So as he's packing his stuff, I'm taking his stuff out of the box and out of the suitcase. And I'm just like, I don't want you to leave. And he picks me up and he like throws me into the dresser and he throws me on the floor and he's pushing me to get him off of him, or to get me off of him. And he's just like, well, I'm leaving or whatever. And then, I had a couple bruises on my ribs and like a couple scratches on my arms and my legs and everything. But after that, like, I was just like, well, we had a discussion that morning after, and I was telling him, that's not okay. Like, I don't care what kind of argument we get into. There's never a reason for you to put your hands on me, whether it's you punching me, kicking me, or picking me up and hurling me. Like, there should never be a reason why you're picking my body up and throwing me into a dresser or throwing me onto the floor. Like that makes no sense to me. So, we talked about it. I told him about my childhood and why I feel like it's not okay for, for him to hit me. Like, that's very traumatizing to me just because of everything I've been through as a child, constantly being abused all the time. So to me, that wasn't okay. And after I expressed that to him, we shared our tears or whatever, and he let me know he was never going to do it again. And he never did it again. But after that, we decided, hey, I'm going to skip forward a little bit. We decided that one day he was just like, well, let's get some wine so we can drink. No, let me go back. While we were still working at the assistant living, things started to get a little bit more abusive, like verbally abusive. Like, he would say things to hurt me or say things to hurt my feelings and tell me that I wasn't going to be anything without him, or tell me that I'm never going to make it. I'm always going to be up under my family and I'm never going to amount to anything, basically. And then things like that, like, nobody wants to hear that, especially if it's somebody you're supposed to love and they're supposed to love you. You don't want to hear that you're not going to be anything, you're never going to amount to anything, or anything like that. It got to the point where we were always arguing every single day. And while we were working at the assistant living, the owner of the place, she was just like, I don't really like him. I don't really like how he's treating you. So if you want me to fire him, I will fire him for you. And at this time, I didn't know that they were doing an investigation because he was stealing from the old people. I didn't know that. So she was just like, if you want me to fire him, I'll fire him. And I was just like, no, don't fire him. It's okay. Like, it's not that big a deal. And then later on, she found out that he was actually stealing from the people. So they actually did end up firing him. And then after that, you know, we went back to the house after he told me that he was fired, and after he told me what the investigation and everything was about. He came home and he was just like, you know, I feel like drinking, so let's go to the liquor store, let's get some wine. By this time, I think I was like 19, maybe 20 years old. I think I was 19 years old. I wasn't, of course, 19 years old, you're not legally able to go to the liquor store and pick up anything. But he was 21, so he was just like, I'll go pick up some wine and then we can drink. So we were drinking or whatever. We both got super lit. And of course, we were doing the, you know, things that drunk people do. We were playing like this little sexual game, and then we ended up, you know, making a video and, you know, having sex that night. So after that night, you know, I was, of course, according to him, I was acting really crazy. And I was acting crazy and, you know, not acting like I know how to handle my liquor. So after that, like skip to October, that's when I found out I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant with my son here. And after I found out I was pregnant, I guess I was going through like all these emotions. From the beginning, when we first moved into our apartment, I really wanted to have a baby. Like I was just like, I really can't wait to have a baby, start a family with you, you know, things like that. And it was the same thing for him. He was just like, you know, I can't wait to have a baby with you or whatever. And then we went through that stage where we were arguing every single day, not able to get along with each other, and just in a dysfunctional, like toxic relationship. So I was just like, I don't, you know, when I found out I was pregnant, it went from being happy to being sad. I was just like, I don't want to have a baby in this type of relationship setting. Like, that's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for the baby or anything like that. So when I found out I was pregnant, I was like having some abdominal pain. So I just thought I was coming on my period. So I actually went to the doctor that same day that I found out to try and get on birth control. So my mom's husband at the time, he was, or not at the time, she's still married to him, but my mom's husband, they were living down here, and he's currently in the military. So he took me to the hospital on Fort Carson here. And when he took me there, you know, he was there for moral support. He was just like, whatever you need, I got you or whatever. So when I went into the doctor's office, I was just like, you know, I'm really here to get on birth control. I don't want to get pregnant right now. This was after making the decision that I didn't want to have a baby. So I was just like, no, I don't want to have a baby. I'm not ready for that. I'm not in a good relationship to where it's healthy for me to have a baby at this point. And then he was just like, well, before I get you on the birth control, I want to give you a piss test. So I was just like, okay, whatever, you can give me the piss test, but I'm still not going to be pregnant. He comes back and he's just like, well, you thought you were going to get on birth control, but I can't do that because you are pregnant. And I ran out of the room. I was crying, like having a breakdown, because I was just like, I'm not, okay. I was just like, I'm not ready for that. Like, we're going through so much right now. I don't need to have any babies with this dude. Like, it's not the time for that. So I was in this really depressed stage, and I'm just like, I don't believe in abortion, so I can't do that. So I guess I'm just gonna have to stick here and stay in this relationship that I don't want to be in anymore, because that's all we do is argue. So what I have to do is just stay in this relationship. So you know, after I found out I was pregnant, I had to quit the assisted living just because I wasn't able to do the heavy lifting. I was lifting 300, 400 pound people because they were paralyzed, or because, you know, they couldn't walk on their own, or whatever the case may be. I just wasn't able to do that while I was pregnant. So I went back home after finding out I was pregnant, and I told him, you know, I'm not happy, like, go. I was just like, I'm not happy. I don't want to have a baby with you anymore. I don't feel like it's the right time. We're not in a good stage right now in our relationship that, you know, that is healthy for me to have a child right now. And he immediately gets pissed off, and he's just like, well, you told me that you were happy, and you told me that you wanted to have a baby, and you're sitting over here, now you're unhappy, and now you're crying because you found out that you were pregnant. And I was just like, yeah, I was happy at first, but then I realized everything that we were going through. I realized that I wasn't ready, and neither were you. Like, we weren't ready to have a child together because we don't even like each other. I was just like, we're in a relationship where we're arguing all the time. It's toxic. We don't need to bring a baby into this. So after that, he gets on the phone, he calls his mom, and his mom's just like, I understand where she's coming from. I understand where you're coming from. But for the sake of that baby, you guys need to stop arguing, and you guys need to try and get along so that you guys can have a healthy baby. It's not healthy for her to be depressed. It's not healthy for you guys to be arguing. It's not healthy for the baby if you guys are in a toxic relationship. So you guys need to figure out how to fix it. So I'm just like, okay, we're not in a good relationship right now, but let's try to go to counseling. I was telling him, you know, maybe we could go to counseling to try and fix this. And he was just like, well, hold on, let me fix this camera. He was kind of like, okay, well, I'll go to counseling. And then I was already in counseling because of dealing with whatever I was going through with my childhood. So I was already in counseling. So I went to my counselor, asked my counselor if he could sit in on it and if we could talk about some of our issues. So he said, okay, or whatever. And then the counselor was listening to both of us, but everything that was being said, it was being blamed on my baby father. I guess he didn't like that. So when we got home after the counseling session, we started arguing again. And it's just like, when you're going through something like that, like, I don't want to keep arguing with you. I don't want to keep arguing with you. But at this time, it's just like, my baby father was the type of person that wanted to argue until 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. Like, I could be like sleep in a deep sleep. And this man will wake me up out of my sleep to argue with me. And mind you, when you're pregnant, sometimes, like, especially the beginning of your pregnancy, that's all you want to do is sleep. So sometimes while he's arguing, I'm sitting over here dozing off, and he's getting pissed because I'm falling asleep while he's arguing. He's just like, oh, well, you don't care about anything that's happening. You don't respect me. It's about showing that you care about what we're talking about and about having respect for me, not falling asleep. You need to give me eye contact, direct eye contact while I'm talking to you. Don't look away from me. I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, you're being disrespectful. And I'm just like, well, I'm pregnant, so if I want to sleep, like, let me sleep. Like, there's no need for us to be having another argument just because I want to go to sleep. And I forgot where it was. Like I said, I had to stop working at the nursing home because I was pregnant. So I went the whole year of 2017 not working. It went from, us arguing all the time in that apartment. And now that I wasn't working, it was just like, now I have to depend on you for everything. He wasn't trying to keep a job. Like, he would get a good job, like a good paying job. And then, like, mind you, I was working at Home Depot before I even met him. I was working at Home Depot. I had my uncle co-sign for me for my vehicle. And then I lost my job at Home Depot, wasn't able to pay for my car. And then when I got the job at Walmart, I was, able to catch up on my payments. I was good. And then when me and him moved into our apartment, it was just my car that we had because he didn't have a car anymore. And he stopped making the payments on my car. He wasn't making payments on time for rent. He wasn't keeping a job so that we could, he didn't want me to work because he's just like, you're pregnant, so you don't need to work. So I'll just take care of everything. And I was just like, okay, well, whatever. So you don't want me to work. And by this time we had fixed all of our issues. So I was just like, okay, well, you don't want me to work, so I won't work. And, he stopped making the payments on my car. And he stopped making the payments on the apartment. And then after that, like, I was telling him, I was just like, if you want me to not work, then you need to keep a job. And then that pissed him off. And he was just like, well, I'm the man and I'm going to take care of everything. And I don't need you telling me that I need to keep a job. And I don't need you, I don't need you pointing out what I'm doing wrong. Let me be the man and you keep being the woman or whatever. You don't need to work. And I was just like, well, if you need help with the funds, I can go get a job. He's just like, you don't need to work. You need to stop asking me if you can work because I don't want you to work. I'm just like, okay, whatever. So we ended up, the usual, arguing every single day. And then by this time, I was probably like 3 months pregnant. I was just like, well, screw it. Like, I'm not going to not work and be in this relationship depending on you where all we do is fight and bicker. You can't keep a job. You don't want to keep a job. You're not paying for my car. You're not paying for our place. Like, we're going to get evicted because you're doing the most. Like, you're not, I'm tired of arguing with you every day. I'm not happy. And then I just left him. I left him sitting in that apartment and, I went back to my mom's house. So after that, I was probably about 4 or 5 months pregnant. And, I hadn't talked to him after I broke up with him. That was it. I didn't want anything else to do with him or whatever. And then he shows up at my church. Just out of the blue, just shows up at my church. And I'm just like, I get that me and you have had like this huge like breakup or whatever, but there's no reason why you shouldn't call to see how I'm doing or see how the baby's developing or see if you can come to any of the appointments or, whatever the case may be. And he was just like, oh, well, I was going to reach out to you and do this and do that. And I'm just like, well, no, you weren't, because if you were, then you would have. So after that, he was talking to me and he was just like, well, I want you back or whatever. I miss you. I love you. And at first I was just like, I'm not falling for that shit. Like, I'm not about to sit here and be in a relationship with somebody like you. You're controlling, and I'm not about to be in a relationship with you. So, like I said, I was probably about 4 or 5 months pregnant. And then we were talking on the phone or whatever, and he was just like, I want you to be in a relationship with me. And I was just like, well, I don't want to. And then it was kind of one of those things where either you be in a relationship with me or just stop talking to me altogether. Like, I won't be there for the child. I won't be there for anything if you don't want to be with me. So it was just like, okay, well, maybe I should be in a relationship with him. So at the time, he was living in like a roommate situation with 2 other chicks. He was living there. And things were good. Like, things were perfectly fine or whatever. And then after that, he went from living in that roommate situation to living in another roommate situation. I was still living with my mom at the time, living in her basement. He went to another roommate situation. And, you know, I would go over there and I would stay the night with him and everything was perfectly fine. We were happy. And then all of a sudden, while I'm sleeping in the middle of the night, he calls me and says that when he got home from work, they put his stuff out on the street. So I'm just like, that makes no sense. You know, he's crying to me, telling me he doesn't know what he's going to do. And at that time, he had pulled up to my mom's house. You know, I walk outside because I'm just like, well, he needs me right now. So let me go outside and make sure he's okay. I'm sitting in the car with him. And I'm sitting in the car with him and we're talking and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do next. And my mom's husband comes downstairs and he locks me out of the house. I'm just like, well, that makes no sense. Like, you knew I was coming outside. Like, I told my mom that I was going outside before I even walked out there. I was just like, you know, my baby father's here, so I'm just going to go outside and see what's going on with him. He's going through something, so I'm going to go outside and talk to him for a little bit. So my mom's husband, he comes downstairs and he locks the door, so I go into the house, or I go to the door, and I'm knocking on it, and I'm just like, well, why'd you lock me out? That makes no sense. And he's yelling at me. He's talking about, oh, you need to be in the house by 8 o'clock. He was like, you need to be in the house by 8 o'clock and you don't need to be ripping and running in this house because we got kids that are sleeping and we got this and we got that. And I'm just like, there's no time for that. Like, you're causing unnecessary drama because I'm sitting outside. Like, I'm old enough to know to be quiet when I come into the house because the kids are sleeping. They have to go to school in the morning. But for you to be petty and just lock me out because you don't like me for whatever reason, that makes no sense to me. So me and my mom's husband got into like this physical altercation, and he ends up hitting me in my stomach. Not on purpose, but he did. And me being the petty person that I was, I called the cops on him, and I was just like, well, he hit me in my stomach. And he's just like, oh, no, I never hit her. I never put my hands on her, blah, blah, blah. And we're going back and forth. And I'm just like, screw it. Like, my mom is just like, you know, and me and him are literally fist fighting. And my mom's just like, you need to go. Tell it to me. She was like, you need to go. You need to pack your stuff and you need to go. So I'm sitting over here. I'm just like, you're going to choose this man over me. That's fine. So I packed my stuff, everything. And I moved with my grandmother. She kind of lived down the street, so I moved in with her. By this time, he's homeless. I'm living with my grandmother. And I told her everything that was going on. She was just like, he can't stay here. Because me, I don't believe in, I think it's called like fornication. He can't live here with us because you guys are not married. So after a while, I kind of like convinced her to let him stay with us. So, but he had to sleep on a different couch than me. Stop. He had to sleep on a different couch than me. Go play with your toys. So he was sleeping on one couch, I was sleeping on the other couch. Me and him were, you know, we were in a good place or whatever. Sometimes he would sleep in his car, sometimes he would sleep in the house with me. So we were living there with my grandmother, and then me and him would get into these arguments over petty stuff. By this time, I was enrolled into Pima Medical Institute. I was enrolled in there from the moment I found out I was pregnant until probably about like 6 or 7 months pregnant. I was enrolled in there, and then around 7 months I was told I couldn't go back to school because of all the pain that I was having during the pregnancy. My OB didn't think that it was healthy for me to keep going back and forth to school, so he put me on permanent bed rest until I delivered the baby. So I had to drop out of school and then continue to be on bed rest, be at home, and all of that while he went to work, so I was just stuck in the house. I forgot what we were arguing about there, but no, we were arguing because me and my emotional self while I was pregnant was being mean to him, or we just didn't get along on some things, or once again he couldn't keep a job, and all like the tension that was going on in the house. So me and him, we decided, you know, we're both tired of living there. My grandmother doesn't want us here, so we need to figure out how to freaking get out of her apartment, or you know, how to get out of her house. So after a while, he found a job and he got enough money to get us out. We moved out, and then after we moved out, I was, you know, still homebound. I was going back to my doctor's appointments like every 2 weeks, and then we were in our apartment and I didn't like it. I was just like, I hate this apartment. It's ugly. It looks like we're living in a homeless shelter. There's one window in the living room, one window in the bedroom. There's no balcony. It's just ugly. It just looks nasty. I hate it. Oh, that scared the crap out of me. And he was just like, you know, you need to be grateful that I got this apartment for us. There's a guy cutting the bushes, so don't mind that noise. But he was just like, you need to be grateful that I got us a place. At least you don't have to live with your grandmother. And, you know, we argued about that for a little bit. And then I was just like, okay, well, it's our own place, whatever. So I'm going to take care of it as if it's our place, and I'm not going to complain about it. But then after that, he was working at this place called Window World. And then he was working there, and then he started stealing. He was going to install windows and coming home with things he didn't leave the house with. So I'm just like, why are you stealing things? You come home with money that you didn't leave the house with. You come home with different things like jewelry and stuff. Like, why are you stealing from these people's homes? Do you know that you can get arrested? Do you know that you can go to prison for this? Like, and then after I confronted him, he kept telling me to shut my mouth, basically stay in a woman's place, let me do me, and let me take care of our family. So I'm just like, I'm not gonna sit here and be with a thief, and I can't tell you to stop stealing. Then what is the point in me and you know, doing all this extra stuff? Like, there's no point in that. You shouldn't be stealing, boy, I was just like, you shouldn't be stealing. You shouldn't be stealing when you're going to work. You don't go to work to steal. You go to work and make money. Stop. You go to work to make money, not to steal. Got into an argument about that because he wanted me to shut my mouth and not say anything about him being a thief. So we argued about that or whatever. And then it would be things like, you know, you need to shut up because any other woman that I was with never told me what I should and shouldn't be doing. No other woman treated me like this, and no other woman gave me, you know, no other woman basically opened up their mouth except for you. And I'm just like, well, first, I'm not any other woman. We don't need to be talking about other women because me and you are in a relationship. It's not me, you, and this other woman that you're talking about. And then, you know, mind you, when you get to know somebody, you tell them about your past. You tell them about how many people you slept with and how many relationships you've been in, what happened in those relationships, your childhood, all things like that. You make sure you get to know that person. So it would be things like he'd just pick an argument with me, and then he'd just be like, well, then leave and go be a hoe. Like, go be a hoe like you used to be in the past. Like, go and sleep around and hop from dick to dick to dick because that's what you used to do. And I'm just like, well, first of all, I never used to do that. And you don't need to be throwing my past in my face. Like, I've never been in a relationship where people throw my past in my face, so that's not right. So being in that state, like when I would tell him, like, don't, you know, that's not right for you to be throwing my past in my face. We would argue about that. We would argue about, like, when I would go and use the bathroom. Mind you, I'm 7 months pregnant at this time. So when I would go use the bathroom, he would be standing at the door just staring at me while I'm peeing. And I'm just like, well, okay, like, there's no need for you to be standing right here. I know how to use the bathroom by myself. I'm okay. The baby's not coming anytime soon, so I'll be fine. And he's just like, well, I'm going to stand here, and there's nothing you can do about that. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I'll just sit here and pee while you're standing at the door like you're a prison guard. So I would get mad at things like that. I'm just like, I can be alone in this apartment without you standing over me all the time. When I use the bathroom, when I take a shower, when I go sit on the couch to be by myself, you always want to be with me. I can't ever have any space. When I want to go see my family, you're just like, oh, you can't go. It was things like, I don't like what you're wearing. You need to change that. You can't wear makeup. You can't go get your hair done. I like it when your hair is natural, like nappy. I don't really have nappy hair, but when you wash it, when I wash my hair gets kind of like thicker. And he wouldn't want me to straighten my hair. He wouldn't want me to put my hair up in a ponytail like it is now. He just want me to walk around looking like whatever. He didn't want me to wear open-toe shoes. He didn't want me to wear dresses. My dresses were hoish to him. He didn't like how short they were. He would like, and since I wasn't working, I didn't have any money, so he would put $20 on the dresser and be like, oh, well, go crazy. Mind you, what the hell can you do with $20 besides put gas in your car and there you go. So he would tell me, you know, go crazy or whatever. And then I'm just like, okay, well, let me go and spend my $20. He'd be like, oh, well, you can't buy that. You can't buy that. You can't buy that. I'm just like, well, you just gave me the $20, so let me spend it the way I want to. Me, you know, wanted to spend my little $20 that you gave me. I'm not making any money, so this $20, let me spend it the way I want to. And we got into an argument about that. I'm just like, you don't give me no money. You don't want me to work. I can't work because I'm on bed rest. And then you want to just hand me a measly $20 and think everything's going to be okay. We used to argue about things like, you're not paying my car note. Like, we're going to get a repo because you're not paying for it. You don't want me to work. I can't work. But you won't pay for the bills. Like, there's no need for all of that. Like, these people are literally looking for my car because you won't pay for it. And he's just like, basically, again, you need to be quiet and you need to let me take care of it and blah, blah, blah. So me, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you take care of it. He wasn't taking care of it. So my car ended up getting repoed. My car didn't get repoed until after I had my child. But still, it ended up getting repoed because of all the missed payments that, you know, there was no payments being made because he just wasn't taking care of it. So skip towards the day that I had my child. I had him on August 28th of 2017. So August 27th of 2017, we had actually went to church that day. We went to church and we were okay. He was upset with me because I got dressed and I put on my church dress and I put on my makeup and my open-toe shoes. He was pissed off because he wanted me to not wear makeup, not do my hair, not do anything. So he was just mad. So we went to church. There was a little bit of tension there, but you know, it wasn't that big a deal. He was again commenting on my clothes and he didn't want me to look like this and look like that. So I just got mad. I'm just like, I don't need you controlling me. I don't need none of that. Like, I already don't feel pretty as it is because I'm freaking a big whale. So please stop telling me that you want me to look like this and you want me to look like that. So we were okay during church after I said that to him. And then when we got home, we got into this big argument. And I got out of the car and I took off walking down the street. Mind you, I'm 9 months pregnant. Not past due, but you know, about 40 weeks when your baby's about, when your baby's due. And I'm just like, you know, the baby's due tomorrow. I don't got time for this. So I took off walking down the street. And I was walking and he would follow me, arguing with me, yelling at me. And I'm just like, I don't got time for that. So I kept walking. And then after that, I was just like, okay, well, now I'm tired of walking. I'm big. I'm tired of walking. So let me sit here. I sat down on the curb and he came outside and he was just continuing to argue with me. Mind you, we were going through that stage where we were arguing every single second of the day. Like, he would call me on the phone and I'd get pissed off because I heard his voice. So I'd just be like, yeah. And he's just like, you need to sound happy to hear me, or you need to sound happy to hear from me. I don't got time for your attitude. I don't got time for that. And I'm just like, well, I don't got time to argue with you. So that's why I'm not happy to hear from you. I don't want to talk to you. When you're gone from work, that's like a mini vacation. I don't want to see you. None of that. Don't come home for lunch. The only time that I need to see you is when you're leaving for work and when you're coming home from work. Don't come home for lunch. Don't call me on your lunch break. Don't call me on your breaks because I'm just tired of you. I don't want to be with you anymore. I would cry to my sisters talking about, you know, I hate being in this relationship. I feel like I'm forced to be here because I don't have a job. Like, I can't leave because if I do, I'm going to be homeless. Like, that makes no sense, you know? So I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. So I'm going to be forced to be in this relationship with somebody I do not even like anymore. So, you know, after we argued or whatever, I had, did I call my mom? No, he actually took me, after we were arguing or whatever, I went back upstairs because I was just like, okay, well, maybe I need to lay down. I'm having some pain. So throughout my entire pregnancy, like even if I had a little pain, I would go to the ER, and he'd get pissed off about that. He's just like, you don't need to go to the ER for everything. It's not that serious and blah, blah, blah. Like there was one time he wasn't moving. So I was just like, okay, the baby's not moving. So I need to go to the ER and figure out what the heck's going on. He'd get pissed off. He'd just be like, we don't need to spend all our time in the ER because you're paranoid over something stupid. So, you know, I walked upstairs. I'm just like, okay, well, I'm having these bad pains and I don't know what it is. I've never had a baby before, so I don't know what labor pains feel like. And he's just like, no, just lay down and it'll be fine. And I'm just like, this is different. This pain is different than any pain that I've ever felt. So it's not something where I'm just gonna lay down and just forget about it because that's what you wanted me to do throughout the whole pregnancy, right? Huh? Yeah. So it's just like, I'm not gonna do that. What I'm going to do is get up and get dressed and take a shower, and we're gonna go to the hospital to figure out what's going on. By this time, the contractions were coming like 2 minutes apart. So I'm just like, okay, well, we really need to go. So I was in the bathroom, I was in the bathtub, I was shaving or whatever. I was just like, ain't nobody about to smell my butt and ain't nobody about to see no hair on my coochie while I'm pushing this baby out. So I was in the bathroom or whatever, shaving and getting dressed or whatever. And then he's just like, okay, well, you ready to go? Let's go. He packed the overnight bag, got the car seat and everything like that. And we were on our way to the hospital. When we get to the hospital, the lady's just like, you know, she's like, well, let's put you in the back room or whatever. Let's check your cervix, see how far along you're dilated or whatever. And by this time, from like that last appointment before even going to the hospital to have the baby, I was always like 4 centimeters dilated. So not dilated enough to keep you in the hospital to have the baby. And I'm just like, well, okay, I get that I'm only 4 centimeters dilated, but I'm having contractions 2 minutes apart. My OB told me if I was having contractions 2 minutes apart to come to the hospital. So that's exactly what I did. She was just like, well, there's nothing that we can do for you at this point because you're only 4 centimeters. So we're going to have to send you home. I said, there's no way in hell you're sending me home. I know that I'm about to have this baby. So you need to do something. And she said, the only thing that we can do for you is have you walk around the hospital until you get dilated some more. So me and him, we went to the bathroom and we actually had sex. And then we walked around the hospital and, you know, we walked around the hospital and the contractions are going from 2 minutes apart to 30 seconds apart. So I'm just like, okay, something's not right. We were walking around the hospital for probably about like 2 or 3 hours. I was in the gown and everything like that. So I go back in and she's just like, oh, well, you're 6 centimeters. So let's put you in the back and let's get everything rolling so that baby can come. So we're in the back and, you know, he's just like, you know, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be just fine. And mind you, that's what we argued about when I was walking down that street. He kept telling me that either, because he didn't like my grandmother at that point because of all the stuff we went through living in her house. He was just like, well, because, you know, my biggest thing is I want my mom in the delivery room, my grandmother, my sisters, and all of my aunts. I was just like, I need all of them there. This is my first baby. I feel like we should all be able to experience it. And he was just like, well, either it's me or your grandma. Either you're going to pick me to be in the delivery room or you're going to pick your grandmother, but we can't both be in there. I'm just like, well, I need you there and I need her there. So I'm not going to pick between both of you. I'm not. So if you don't want to be there, you don't have to be. If she don't want to be there, she don't have to be. But I'm not going to pick between both of you. I need both of you there. And he was just like, well, I won't be there then. I'm just like, okay, that's fine. I'm not about to sit over here and argue with you because you don't want to be in the delivery room because you want to be petty about my grandmother. So when we get to the, you know, after they put me in the hospital or whatever, I tell him to call my grandma. I tell him to call my mom, call everybody. Everybody shows up or whatever. And, you know, he is consoling me. Everything's going to be okay. And then they start doing like the practice pushing after my mom and everybody gets there. They start doing the practice pushing. I was doing okay. And then they started to do like the real pushing because I was 8 centimeters. After I got the epidural and everything, they started to do like the real pushing. And my mom's holding my hand. He's holding, I think he was holding my leg. And I was pushing and I was getting tired. You know how tired you get when you start pushing. I was pushing and he got pissed off at me and whispered in my ear, you need to push harder. I don't know what the hell you're doing. You need to push harder. And I'm just like, how about you lay on the table and you push? There's no need for you to try to start an argument while I'm trying to push out a baby. I said, okay, if you're going to do all that, then please leave. Like, I don't got time for none of that. Like, I don't need you trying to argue with me. I'm trying to push this baby out and have a healthy child. I don't need any of that. So after that, I guess he was pissed off. And then after he was coming out a little bit more, his hair started to show. Like, I wasn't able to see it, but everybody else saw it. They're just like, oh my gosh, he has so much hair. And after my baby father saw him, he screamed to the top of his lungs, "Oh, my son, that's my son," blah, blah, blah. Took his body and threw it against the wall and fell on the floor, was rolling around like there was something wrong with him. And my grandmother caught it on camera, but she won't let me see it. But he was just causing a scene for no reason. And after he was born, like they put him, you know, they do the skin to skin with the mom, and then they put him on my chest, and he held on to my face because he didn't, you know, I don't know why, but the baby held on to my face. And after they put him off of me, they took him to the little incubator to make sure he was okay, clear out his lungs and all of that, clear out his mouth and all of that. So after that, we, you know, everybody, they left because I was tired. The baby was sleeping. Stop. I was sleeping and everything like that. So after everybody left, he was, you know, my baby father got mad at me, and he was just like, "You made a fool out of me, and you made this the worst day of my life, and you did this wrong and you did that wrong." By this time, I'm still under the influence of drugs, like with the perks and all that stuff. And I'm just like, I don't got time for this. I'm going to go to sleep. I woke up. I'm just like, well, can I have the baby? Because, you know, I'm trying to feed him. You know, it's time for him to eat. He got mad, and he's just like, well, me and my mom were already planning on taking him from you. So that's what we're gonna do. Like, I'm gonna leave this hospital, I'm gonna take the baby, and you're not gonna stop me. So I'm just like, I don't know why in the hell you think you're about to take my child. So what I did, I changed his name on the birth certificate, or, you know, they didn't have the birth certificate print out, but I changed the name. I changed his name to his last name to Harris. And I didn't tell him about it until right before they had me finalize that paperwork and sent us home. So I didn't tell him about that, and he's just like, oh, well, I'm gonna, you know, I called the nurse in when he went to the bathroom, called the nurse in, and I was just like, can we change this? Because he's trying to take my child. We got into this huge argument, and he tried to take my, or his medical bracelet off and the baby's, and tried to take my baby out of the hospital. So I called security. And they were just like, well, you gotta go. Like, you're sitting over here causing all this havoc, you need to go. So he got pissed off, he took my car, he went home or whatever. And then he came back to the hospital, he was telling me that it was time for us to break up. What? No. He was just like, it's time for us to break up, like, we need to go our separate ways or whatever. My sister and my mom had came in for, you know, visitation or whatever. And then by this time, we were already in the argument stage, so he was already mad. I wasn't mad, I just had the baby, so I'm happy. And my sister was holding him. And he was standing in the doorway, and he was standing in the doorway just looking over my sister. And he would look at me and look at her. And when he would look at me, he would like, get my baby from her. You need to get my child from her. It's like, nobody got time for that. So I was just like, stop. Like, you're causing problems for no reason. Let her hold her nephew. It's a happy day for all of us. Let us all be happy. So after that, we had actually got home from the hospital. It was the day I got discharged. We had went to Walgreens to get my medicine or whatever. We got into this huge argument again. And I was just like, okay, now that my child's here, I may have put up with all the arguing before, you know, while I was pregnant, but I'm not going to do that while he's here. I'm not going to sit here and continue arguing with you over nothing. So what I'm going to do, is I'm going to pack up me and my child, and I'm going to leave. So I called my sister over, and she helped me pack my stuff, and we packed up and we left, and we went to my aunt's house for a couple nights, and then we went to go stay with my grandmother. And you know, after that, like, I would go back and forth to that house to try and go get some of my stuff, and I would be like, well, can you hold him? No, I'm not holding him. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to sit over here and argue with you about holding your child. He didn't do nothing to you, but if you don't want to hold him, then you don't have to. I'm just like, okay, that's fine. So you know, after that, we waited a couple months. Not we, but he waited a couple months. I got my name taken off the lease at our apartment that we were living in at the time. I got my name taken off the lease so that it wouldn't be on my credit, so that I could get another apartment if I wanted to. And then, you know, he waited a couple months, and then he moved to Florida. It's been a year. He hasn't seen his child. When he calls, he doesn't call to check on his child. He doesn't call to see how he's doing. He doesn't call for any of that. He calls for me. I recently got engaged. Not a year ago, like a couple months ago, I got engaged to somebody that he thought I was cheating on him with in our relationship, which I wasn't. But yeah, I ended up getting engaged to my love now. And he's here for him. He might not be here right now, but he's actually here. Like, he helps me take care of him, and he does well for both of us. So, you know, when I finally told him who I was engaged to or whatever, he got mad, and we're going through this whole thing where he's trying to hopefully give up his rights, because it's just like, it wouldn't be any different for you giving up your rights, because you're already not here. Like, you haven't seen him in a year. You don't call to check on him. You don't call to do any of that. Like, he doesn't even know you. When he calls, you know, and we're on FaceTime or whatever, my son's like, who's that? Like, what do you say to your child? Like, he's calling my fiance daddy. So what do I say? Oh, that's daddy? When he's not really, he's his dad, but he's not his dad. Like, he doesn't take care of him. He doesn't call to ask about him. He doesn't, you know, it's just me. It's just me here taking care of him all by myself. I've been taking care of him for a year all by myself with no help. The only thing that my baby father has done, he bought him a toy. He bought him maybe 4 outfits, and he gave me $200 out of a whole year. Nothing else. And I'm just like, well, bravo to that. You get the Best Father of the Year award. You haven't done anything for this child. Nothing. When he needs diapers and wipes, it's me coming out of my pocket for it. He doesn't ask how he's doing. He doesn't ask what is he learning, what are his likes, what are his dislikes, what makes him scared. Like, he doesn't ask any of that. So it's just like, you know, but yeah, that's what I'm going through now, and that's been my journey as to why I became a single mom. So yeah, if you guys like this video, if you guys liked getting to know more about me, go ahead and like this video. Comment down below, let me know what else you guys would like to see. Also, let me know you guys' thoughts about this video, and hit that subscribe button because we need more subscribers. What's the matter? There's something wrong with him. Get out of your butt. But yeah, if you guys liked it, don't forget to like, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much. Bye, guys.
I'll let her get to the top. I'll let her fuck up the streets. I'll let her flip up the work. I'll let her get it all week. I'll let her pull up a dress. I'll let her show me that ass. I'll let her twerk in the seat.